8 more days, Christine. Then it's all mine. The house in Lake Forest, the investment portfolio, everything. 3.7 million.
I was 51 years old when I heard my wife Rebecca plan my funeral like a vacation itinerary. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, the doctors said. Maybe 8 days if I was lucky. I was lying in that sterile hospital bed at Northwestern Memorial, tubes running from my arms, when Dr. Patterson delivered the news with the kind of clinical detachment reserved for terminal cases. Rebecca sat beside me, her hand resting on mine, her face arranged into perfect concern. Our family physician had just stepped out, leaving us with what he thought was privacy. What he didn't know was that Rebecca believed I'd already slipped into unconsciousness from the morphine. My eyes were closed, my breathing shallow, but I heard everything, every single word. Rebecca's phone buzzed. She answered without moving her hand from mine. "It's done," she said quietly, her voice carrying none of the tremor from moments before. Dr. Patterson confirmed it. 8 days, maybe less. There was a pause. Then I heard my stepdaughter Christine's voice through the speaker, sharp and eager. "Finally. God, I thought the old bastard would live forever." Rebecca's grip on my hand tightened slightly, not from affection, but from excitement. 8 more days, Christine. Then it's all mine. The house in Lake Forest, the investment portfolio, everything. 3.7 million. And he never changed the beneficiary designations after we married. Christine laughed, actually laughed. "I'm taking his Porsche 911. The silver one. He babies more than he ever cared about me. I've already got a buyer lined up willing to pay 90 grand cash." My wife, the woman I'd supported through her bankruptcy 6 years ago, the woman I'd welcomed into my home and my life after my first wife died, was already liquidating my assets. In my mind, while my heart was still beating. "We should talk about the funeral arrangements," Rebecca continued, her tone shifting to business-like efficiency. "Nothing expensive. He didn't have many friends anyway. Cremation, small service, maybe at that cheap place on Roosevelt Road." They talked for another 3 minutes about flowers, about notifying my business partners, about how quickly they could access my accounts. Not once did either of them mention grief, or loss, or love. When Rebecca finally ended the call, she leaned down close to my ear. I felt her breath on my skin. "You were always so careful with your money, Robert," she whispered. "So controlled, so superior. But you made one mistake. You trusted me." Then she left, her heels clicking efficiently across the linoleum floor, leaving me alone with the steady beep of monitors and the absolute certainty that I was not going to die in 8 days. Before we continue with this story, if you're watching this, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the notification bell. You won't believe where this goes. Also, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you all. Now, let's get back to the story because what happens next will shock you. When the nurse came in 20 minutes later, I opened my eyes. "I need to make a phone call," I said, my voice stronger than it had been in days. She looked surprised, but handed me my cell phone from the bedside table. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I needed. Dennis Kowalski. My gardener for the past 4 years, a man with a past he thought I didn't know about. I didn't know. I knew everything about the people in my orbit because that's how I'd built a successful wealth management firm. Information was currency, and I'd always been rich in it. Dennis had done 7 years in Stateville for wire fraud. He'd gotten out, gone straight, and worked hard to rebuild his life. He was 46 now, still strong, still sharp, still grateful for the second chance my employment had given him when no one else would hire him. "Mr. Thornton?" His voice was cautious when he answered. I rarely called him directly. "Dennis, I need you to come to Northwestern Memorial. Room 847. Come alone, and don't tell anyone, especially not Rebecca or Christine." There was a pause. "Are you okay, sir?" "I'm dying," I said flatly. "But before I do, I'm going to need your help with something." "Do exactly what I ask," and you'll never have to work again. I promise you that. Another pause, longer this time. Then, I'll be there in 40 minutes. He arrived in 35, still wearing his work clothes, smelling of cut grass and summer heat. I'd been moved to a private room by then, away from the main ICU ward. The morphine drip was lighter now because I'd convinced the nurse I wanted clarity for my final days. What I really wanted was a clear head for what came next. Dennis stood at the foot of my bed, his face creased with concern that actually seemed genuine. It was remarkable, really, how you could spot authentic emotion once you'd been surrounded by performed grief. Sit down, I told him. He pulled up the visitor's chair, his large frame making the furniture look small. I need you to understand something first. What I'm about to tell you stays between us. Completely. If you can't promise me that, leave now. Dennis nodded slowly. You gave me a job when I had nothing, Mr. Thornton. You never treated me like my past defined me. Whatever you need, you have my word. I believed him because Dennis, unlike my wife, understood the value of loyalty. Rebecca is going to kill me, I said simply. His eyes widened. What? Not directly. She's not that stupid. But she's going to make sure I don't live past these 8 days Dr. Patterson gave me. She's already planning how to spend my money, how to divide my assets. She thinks I'm too weak to notice, too medicated to care. She's wrong on both counts. Dennis leaned forward, his voice dropping. You need to go to the police. And tell them what? That my wife sounded happy on a phone call. That she's planning my funeral arrangements while I'm still alive? That's not illegal, Dennis. It's just cruel. No, I need something else from you. I need you to watch her. Every movement, every visitor, everything she does. I need documentation. He pulled out his phone. I can do that. There's more. I continued, reaching for the folder I'd had my attorney bring earlier that afternoon, while Rebecca was out celebrating her impending windfall. I'm changing my will. Everything goes into a trust. You're going to be the trustee. Dennis actually stood up. Mr. Thornton, I can't. I'm not qualified for something like that. Sit down, I said, and there must have been enough of my old authority left because he did. The trust is already structured. My attorney, Walter Morrison, has everything arranged. Your job is simple. You execute the instructions exactly as written. You don't deviate. You don't negotiate. You don't feel sorry for anyone. Can you do that? He searched my face for a long moment, then nodded. What are the instructions? I smiled then, the first real smile I'd managed in days. You're going to give Rebecca and Christine exactly what they deserve. Nothing more, nothing less. But first, we need to make sure they reveal themselves completely. I need proof of intent, Dennis. Real proof. The kind that stands up in court and in the court of public opinion. Over the next hour, I laid out everything. Every detail of what needed to happen. The recording devices Dennis would place in my Lake Forest home when Rebecca wasn't there. The documentation he'd gather of her activities. The timeline we'd follow. Dennis listened without interrupting, his expression growing harder as he understood the scope of Rebecca's betrayal. When I finished, he sat back. She really doesn't love you at all, does she? She loves my money, I corrected. She always has. I was just too lonely after Margaret died to see it clearly. Rebecca was beautiful, attentive, everything a grieving widower thought he needed. I convinced myself it was real. I ignored the signs because I didn't want to be alone. That was my mistake. But it's one I'm going to correct. Dennis stood, tucking the folder under his arm. I'll start tonight. And Mr. Thornton, for what it's worth, I'm sorry. You deserved better than this. After he left, I lay back against the pillows, exhaustion pulling at me. The cancer wasn't a lie. I really was dying, though Dr. Patterson's timeline was more pessimistic than necessary. I had weeks, possibly a few months if the experimental treatment I'd quietly enrolled in worked. But Rebecca didn't need to know that. She needed to believe I was helpless, compliant, ready to slip away on schedule. That belief would make her careless. and carelessness would give me everything I needed. If you're still watching at this point, drop a comment with, "I'm still here." Let's see who's truly following this shocking story. The next morning, Rebecca arrived at the hospital with flowers and a performance. She swept into the room wearing black, already dressed for mourning, her makeup perfect, her expression arranged into concerned devotion. "Robert, darling, how are you feeling?" She set the flowers on the windowsill, white lilies, the kind you bring to funerals, and came to my bedside. I let my hand shake slightly as I reached for hers. "Tired?" I whispered, playing my part. "So tired, Rebecca." "I know, sweetheart. I know." She stroked my forehead with practiced gentleness. "I've been thinking, maybe we should move you home. You'd be more comfortable there, and I could take care of you personally. Hospice can set everything up. Home, where she'd have complete control, where she could monitor my medication, my care, my every moment, where she could ensure that 8-day timeline stayed on track." "I'd like that," I said, letting relief color my voice. "I want to be home." Her smile was radiant. "I'll arrange everything today. We'll have you back in your own bed by tomorrow." She stayed for an hour, playing the devoted wife, holding my hand, talking about memories we'd shared, most of them fabricated or exaggerated. When Dr. Patterson came in for rounds, she asked intelligent questions about pain management and symptom progression. She was good. I had to give her that. If I hadn't heard that phone call, I might have believed the performance myself. After she left, Dr. Patterson lingered. "Your wife is very devoted," he observed, checking my chart. "She seems committed to making you comfortable." "She's committed to something," I agreed, and he glanced at me sharply, catching the edge in my tone. "But doctors see dying patients grow bitter and paranoid all the time." He probably thought it was the cancer talking or the drugs. He had no idea he was watching a chess match where the dying man still had moves left to play. That night, Dennis sent me a text message with a simple attachment, audio file, 18 minutes long, recorded from a device he'd placed in my home office that afternoon while Rebecca was at the hospital. I listened to it twice through my earbuds, my anger growing colder and sharper with each word. Rebecca was on the phone with her sister, Ellen, a woman I'd met exactly 3 times in 6 years of marriage, laughing about how well everything was proceeding. "The old fool actually thinks I love him," Rebecca said, her voice bright with amusement. "He's so pathetic, Ellen. So desperate for affection that he bought every lie I sold him. And now, 8 days, maybe less, and I'm set for life. 3.7 million, plus the house, which is worth at least 2 more. I'll be in Tuscany by Christmas." Ellen's response was muffled, but Rebecca's reply was crystal clear. "Christine? She gets the car and whatever jewelry I don't want. She's been useful, playing the resentful stepdaughter." It kept Robert feeling guilty, kept him trying to win her over. "But once this is done, I'm moving to Italy, and she can figure out her own life. I've played mother to that ungrateful brat long enough." More conversation, then Rebecca's voice again, lower and more calculating. "The hospice nurse starts tomorrow. I made sure to request someone young, inexperienced. They're easier to manage, less likely to notice if pain medication gets administered a little more generously than prescribed. Robert wants to die at home. I'm going to make sure he gets his wish, right on schedule." There it was, clear intent to hasten my death, spoken in her own words, recorded and documented. In Illinois, that was conspiracy to commit murder if she followed through, and even if she didn't, it was enough to challenge any inheritance claim with proof of undue influence and malicious intent. I forwarded the file to Walter Morrison with a single line of text: "Proceed with Phase 2. By the time they moved me home the next afternoon, everything was in motion. The house in Lake Forest looked the same as always, elegant and expensive, perched on 2 acres of manicured lawn that Dennis maintained twice a week. Rebecca had converted the downstairs study into a makeshift hospital room, complete with a rented medical bed, oxygen equipment, and enough monitoring devices to look legitimate. The hospice nurse, a young woman named Kara who couldn't have been more than 25, arrived an hour after I was settled. She was competent but green, exactly as Rebecca had requested. She set up my medication schedule, checked my vitals, and reviewed comfort care protocols with Rebecca, who nodded along with perfect attentiveness. What Kara didn't know was that Dennis had already installed micro cameras in every corner of that room, in the hallway outside, and in the master bedroom where Rebecca slept. Every movement, every medication administration, every whispered conversation would be recorded. Over the next 3 days, I watched Rebecca reveal herself in increments. She was careful, I'd give her that. She didn't dramatically overdose me or smother me with a pillow like some amateur. Instead, she increased my morphine drip by small amounts, just enough to keep me more sedated than necessary. She encouraged the hospice nurse to be generous with anti-anxiety medications, citing my restlessness. She made sure I ate less, drank less, weakened faster. All of it documented. All of it recorded. Dennis visited every day, ostensibly to check on the garden, actually to swap out recording devices and compile evidence. On day 5, Rebecca made her first major mistake. Christine came to visit, and they thought I was unconscious when they stood in the hallway outside my room, speaking in low voices that the microphone picked up perfectly. "How much longer?" Christine asked, impatient as always. "He looks like he could go on for weeks." "He won't," Rebecca assured her. "I'm managing it. Another 3 days, maybe 4. Dr. Patterson said 8 days was the outside estimate. If Robert goes beyond that, it looks natural. If he goes right at 7 or 8 days, it looks like the doctor was accurate. Either way, we're fine. I need money now, Mom. I've got debts. You'll have money soon enough. The will is straightforward. I checked. Everything to the surviving spouse, that's me, with a small bequest to you. Once probate clears, you'll get your share." Christine's voice turned sharp. "How small?" 50,000. "But don't worry, once the estate settles, I'll give you more. You're my daughter. I'm not going to leave you struggling. You better not. I've played my part in this, and you'll be rewarded for it. Now go home. You look too happy. When you come back tomorrow, I need you crying. We have neighbors, Christine. Appearances matter." That conversation alone was worth its weight in legal gold, establishing both conspiracy and premeditation. Walter Morrison nearly laughed when I sent him the file. "Robert, this is airtight. We could have her arrested right now." "Not yet." I told him over the phone, my voice still weak but determined. "I want everything. I want her completely exposed. No room for sympathy, no chance of a settlement. Let her think she's won. Let her get all the way to the finish line. Then we pull the trigger." Day 7 arrived, and I was supposedly on my deathbed. Dr. Patterson came for a home visit, examined me, and told Rebecca privately, though the cameras caught it, that I likely wouldn't make it through the night. She nodded, squeezed his hand gratefully, and showed him out with appropriate sorrow. Then she went upstairs, called her sister, and opened a bottle of wine to celebrate. I spent that night in and out of real sleep, my body actually struggling now because cancer doesn't pause for revenge plots. But I was still alive, still conscious enough to hear Rebecca moving around downstairs, already boxing up my personal items, already erasing me from my own house. On the morning of day 8, I opened my eyes to find her standing over my bed, her face an interesting mixture of frustration and calculation. I was supposed to be dead by now, or at least actively dying. Instead, I was awake, alert, and looking directly at her. "Robert," she said, recovering quickly. "You're awake. How do you feel? Like I'm not dying fast enough for your schedule." I replied, my voice stronger than it had been in a week. She froze. For just a moment, the mask slipped, and I saw the real Rebecca underneath, cold and cornered. Then she smiled, soft and concerned. The pain medication must be making you confused, darling. Let me call Kara. Don't bother, I said, reaching for the bed control to raise myself into a sitting position. Kara's contract ended this morning. I terminated the hospice service an hour ago. Rebecca's smile faltered. What are you talking about? You can't. You're not in any condition to make those decisions. Actually, I am. Turns out Dr. Patterson was overly pessimistic. The experimental treatment I started 2 weeks ago is working. I'm not cured, Rebecca. Let's be clear about that. I'm still dying. But I've got months, not days. Long enough to do what needs to be done. The color drained from her face. I don't understand. Yes, you do. I picked up my phone from the bedside table and pressed play on the audio file from day one, her voice filling the room. Finally, 8 more days, Christine, then it's all mine. I watched her face as she listened to herself plan my death, divide my assets, celebrate my impending demise. When the recording ended, the silence was absolute. Here's what's going to happen. I continued, my tone conversational. You're going to leave this house today. You're going to take nothing except your personal clothing. You're going to sign the divorce papers my attorney is bringing over this afternoon. And you're going to do it all quietly, without contest, because if you don't, these recordings go to the Illinois state's attorney. What you've done, Rebecca, conspiracy to commit murder, it carries 20 to 60 years. You'd die in prison. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. You can't prove anything. I never actually hurt you. You administered medication in amounts designed to hasten my death. It's all on video, time-stamped, correlated with medical records. You conspired with Christine to benefit from my death. That's on audio. You married me under false pretenses with the specific intent to inherit my wealth. I've got emails, text messages, financial records showing you were bankrupt when we met and strategically targeted me. Walter Morrison has spent the last week building a case that would make a prosecutor weep with joy. So no, Rebecca, I can prove everything. She sat down heavily in the chair beside my bed, all her elegance collapsing into something small and defeated. What about Christine? She'll get exactly what she deserves. Nothing. She's an adult who participated in a conspiracy to benefit from my death. The only reason I'm not having her arrested alongside you is because she's your problem, not mine. You raised her. You encouraged her. You deal with the consequences. Rebecca looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw something like genuine emotion in her eyes. It might have been fear or regret or just the shock of being caught. I needed the money, Robert. I was desperate. You were greedy. I corrected. There's a difference. Desperate people ask for help. Greedy people plot murder. You made your choice. Now live with it. Walter Morrison arrived at 2 o'clock with the divorce papers, a settlement agreement that gave Rebecca exactly nothing except her freedom from prosecution and a detailed accounting of every recorded conversation, every documented action, every piece of evidence we'd compiled. She signed everything without reading it, her hand shaking, her designer clothes looking suddenly cheap in the afternoon light. By 4 o'clock, she was gone, driving away in her leased Mercedes, leaving behind 6 years of lies and the life she'd thought she'd secured. Christine called my phone 17 times that evening. I didn't answer. Walter sent her a cease and desist letter the next morning, along with a copy of her recorded conversations. She didn't call again. 3 months later, I'm sitting in my home office, the same room where Rebecca once planned my funeral, working with my actual oncologist on a treatment protocol that's giving me more time than anyone expected. The cancer is still there, still terminal, but it's slow, manageable, giving me space to rebuild what I can of the life I have left. Dennis Kowalski is indeed my trustee now, managing a foundation I created to help formerly incarcerated people find employment and second chances. He's good at it, better than he knows, and he'll never have to worry about money again. I kept my promise. The house is quieter now, emptier in some ways, but honest. I have a few real friends who visit, people who knew me before Rebecca, people who stuck around after. We don't talk about her much. There's nothing left to say. Some nights, I think about those 8 days, about how close she came to succeeding, about how easily I could have slipped away, medicated and isolated. Another wealthy old man who died on schedule. But I didn't. I'm still here, still breathing, still making sure that the people who bet on my death understand the cost of that gamble. Rebecca sends emails sometimes, from an address I have automatically filtered to spam. Walter tells me she's living in a studio apartment in Naperville, working as a receptionist at a dental office, her dreams of Tuscany and luxury traded for the reality of consequence. Christine moved to Arizona, last I heard, still bitter, still blaming everyone but herself. I don't waste energy hating them anymore. Hate takes strength I need for living, for the time I have left, for making sure my actual legacy, the foundation, the people I help, the truth I insisted on, means something. I was 51 years old when I heard my wife plan my funeral. I'm 52 now, still dying, still fighting, still here. And that, in the end, is the only revenge that really matters, surviving long enough to make sure the truth is told, the guilty are exposed, and the people who bet against you understand they chose the wrong target. Rebecca wanted 8 days. I gave her a lifetime of regret instead. Fair trade, I think. If you've watched this entire story, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and drop a comment telling me what you think. Would you have handled this differently? Do you think Robert was right to expose them? Or should he have just changed his will quietly? I want to hear your thoughts. And if you know someone who needs to hear this story, someone dealing with betrayal or deception, share this video with them. Sometimes people need to know they're not alone, and they're not powerless. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.